Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm an American who's lived in the UK for almost 10 years, and today I am telling you whether or not my indefinite leave to remain application came back and some possible complications that I had with it. Okay, so I'm gonna jump right into things because spoiler alert, I was gonna try and make you wait for the answer, but I'm not. I'm pretty excited to share the story, but it is a story. So basically, if you follow the channel, if you watched back in January, you'll have seen that I took the Life in the UK test, and this was to apply for my indefinite leave to remain. I will explain indefinite leave to remain in a minute because it's not indefinite. So I had to do that back in January. I put in my application for my indefinite leave to remain in February of 2021, February 12th to be exact, which was my birthday. Now at the time, they didn't have the priority service available. It's like an extortionate amount of money extra, I think £800-ish, which is a lot, but when you compare it to the fact that the application itself costs over £2,000, I was probably gonna do it just because I felt like I've been waiting so long for it. But they didn't have that available at the time, so I had to go the normal route, which was basically up to 6 months waiting time. So I knew that from February 12th, it should come back before August 12th, but was not guaranteed to come back before then. So I have basically just been biding my time, getting double vaccinated, feeling pretty trapped, to be honest. I'll get to that in a minute. And waiting for it to come back. Now, for most people, they're pretty certain that their indefinite leave application will come back and they meet all the requirements and everything is hunky-dory. Did they say that in the UK? Hunky-dory? Comment below, let me know. Do you say hunky-dory in the UK? I'd love to know. I've never heard anyone say it, so I'm guessing no, but there you are. So I knew that I had to wait until August 12th, possibly, and I ran into a little bit of a situation where I almost didn't qualify, which I will also get to in a minute. So let me back up a little bit and explain what indefinite leave to remain is, because as I said, it's not indefinite, which is, it seems indefinite and you think it's indefinite, but it's not indefinite. So what it is it's basically a settlement visa. So you can be on all kinds of visas in the UK. I've been on basically all of them throughout my time here. A student visa, a work visa, a partner visa. They've got more short-term visas if you're just doing kind of a like an internship, like investor visas, all kinds of visas, but they don't all lead to settlement. So the indefinite leave to remain visa, or I don't know if it's called I don't know if it's technically considered a visa anymore because it means you don't need a visa, but it's a residence permit. And this requires you to have spent 5 years in the UK on a visa that leads to settlement. It needs to be continuous as well. So examples of things that don't lead to settlement would be a student visa. So the whole point is that you come to the UK and you're meant to leave, maybe not necessarily right after your program. Sometimes they will give you time after. There's a new graduate visa that gives you a couple years after. But the idea is on a student visa, you're meant to go home eventually. So so I've lived here for almost 10 years now, but I did not qualify for indefinite leave to remain until after I'd spent 5 years on a visa that led to settlement. So the main options for this are going to be a work visa or a partner visa. So when my husband and I, who was not my husband at the time, 5 years ago, we qualified for what they call an unmarried partner visa. We had been living in the UK together for 2 years at that point, and this was while I was on a student visa. So my time living with him previously didn't count towards my indefinite leave, but we did end up qualifying for the unmarried partners visa because we were able to use that time that we had lived together to show that we were unmarried partners. And the reason why they have the 2-year requirement is so you can't just apply with your roommate. Anyway, so that started in March of 2016 is when I got my first partner visa, which was an unmarried partner visa at the time. Now you are on that one for 2.5 years, and then at 2.5 years you have to renew. At this point we had gotten married, so I basically renewed and was on a married partner visa, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It was just that what we had to show was our marriage certificate as opposed to lots of evidence of like our relationship and living together. So that would get me my total of 5 years. So February of 2021, actually March of 2021 was my 5 years that I needed towards my indefinite leave to remain. There are other stipulations that you need to have in place, which I'll get into in a minute because that's where we almost fell short. So you had to have been actually like living in the UK. You can't just have gotten the visa 5 years ago, moved away, and then come back in and be like, I'm ready for my indefinite leave. You have to show that you've been living in the UK, you've been resident in the UK, and there's a financial element as well. So for one person, as if you don't have kids or dependents, you have to basically show that you and your partner together have £18,600 of a salaried job per year. There are other options, but once you get into things like freelancing, it can be pretty difficult to meet the requirements based on how they count backwards, and if you made more this month and less this month, it's just a lot easier to have a salaried job in order to kind of pass these visa checks. So before I tell you what problems we ran into, I will explain what I mean by indefinite leave is not indefinite. And basically you get indefinite leave to remain, but if you live outside the UK for over 2 years, you completely start from scratch. You completely start from zero. And I know this sounds like a long time. So people are like, well, of course, if you're going to live in the UK, like, why would you be gone for 2 years? But if you think about it, you know, there's a big world out there. What happens if, you know, one of us got a job in America and wanted to take it? What happens if, God forbid, something happened to someone in my family and I felt like I needed to be there and, you know, help? There's all kinds of things that can happen in life. And so yes, 2 years is a long amount of time to spend away from the UK, but I've got lots of plans coming up. And like I said, there's lots of opportunity out there in the world. So I don't want to be in a situation where, they take away my indefinite leave because I've been living for over 2 years out of the country, which is why I've also now applied for citizenship, but that is a whole different video. So that's what I mean when I say it's called indefinite leave to remain, but it's not technically indefinite. They can take it away. So moving on to the problems that I potentially ran into with my visa. Like I said, for most people, it's a pretty simple process. You've already been here for 5 years on these visas leading up. You know what's required. So my story starts with a salaried job. So since I have been in the UK on a partner visa in March of 2016, I had been working a salaried job, and it was perfectly fine in order to satisfy the requirements. So everything was going to be good. As the years went on, and I sort of realized that I should probably branch out, maybe try and move up, maybe try and go to another company, I never did, out of fear that something would happen and I wouldn't have a job, or I'd apply for a job and they'd accept me, and then something would happen with that job and then I wouldn't qualify for indefinite leave. My husband works freelance, which is why, like I'm saying, my salary job was a little bit easier for us to satisfy the financial requirement. Not that we definitely couldn't have, but it's like, you don't want to be caught in a position where something happens and because of like the freelance nature of something, you don't qualify. So I stayed in this job and I stayed in this job. And as much as I enjoyed the people that I worked with at this job, in case any of them ever watch this, the job itself, I just felt like I was definitely had outgrown. But again, I was so scared and I was like, just make it to February of 2021 to get the visa, to make sure that's all secure. You've put so much time into your life in the UK and, you know, it's fine. So even when it was pretty terrible, I hated my commute and I really wasn't happy, I just stuck with it in order to get this indefinite leave to remain. And then what happened was 2020, and I no longer had a job as of October of 2020. Now, this all has worked out 100% for the best, which I'll talk about in another video where I share how I actually make money these days and what my job is. But at the time, I was like 6 months away from qualifying for indefinite leave to remain. And I lost my job that I always stuck with, even though I didn't like it in the end, because I was so afraid of not qualifying for indefinite leave to remain. So this is a great example of why you should never stick with a job or stick with anything in your life with the idea that you're definitely going to get something out of it, or that it's definitely secure or anything like that, because at the end of the day, if something happens globally and a company can no longer hire you and no longer has the money for your position, or it doesn't exist, they don't care about your indefinite leave to remain visa. Harsh but true. So we ended up using savings for the indefinite leave to remain visa. So the other option, if you don't have salaried or unsalaried employment, there are a couple other ways, but the other main way is through your savings. So thank God we had kind of seen this coming and been able to hoard a bunch of savings, get it all together in the right bank accounts. And I was very lucky to be gifted some money from my grandparents, who unfortunately passed away in the past couple of years, which was exactly the amount of money needed extra to bring our savings up to the indefinite leave to remain savings requirement. So I'm not exactly sure where I stand on things like that in terms of what it means, if it means anything, but it was a really nice feeling to feel like someone somewhere knew the situation that I was in and was looking out for me. Anyway, so we ended up qualifying basically by the skin of our teeth on the savings requirement for my visa. So it didn't matter at that point that I had lost my job, because we only had to submit bank statements with savings. Because of the whole situation globally, they did have some things in place where you could have gone ahead and used like your old work's salary if you were furloughed or no longer had employment. However, that was only being extended like weeks at a time. So I had to apply in February, and until like the end of January, it said that that was expiring at the end of January. So you have your whole life in the balance of this visa, and it was very difficult to know like exactly what would happen if we didn't have the savings. So we did end up qualifying via the savings route, but again, the whole 6 months that I've been waiting, I'm like, did I count the right amount? Have I misread something in the paperwork? It's a little bit of a different qualifying scenario than I was used to planning on with my salaried employment. So kind of nerve-wracking. And I will finally get to the point and say that my visa came back on July 19th, 2021. In case anyone else out there needs a timeline, it was about 5 months and a couple of weeks. So fireworks, fireworks, fireworks. I am so excited to finally have indefinite but not indefinite leave to remain in the UK. Like I said, I've been here for 10 years. I've been on the settlement route for 5, and it's just such a relief for so many reasons. Number one, I can actually travel now, considering I've missed like almost 2 years in my family and some of my friends' lives where I haven't seen them. So that's really exciting. But also my whole time here really has been all about worry about which visa comes next, when our visa's expiring. Like I said, living my entire life based on my indefinite leave to remain, not making decisions that would jeopardize that in my mind, feeling like I was just basically constantly beholden to these visa rules. And I don't have a problem with it. I know that I'm moving to another country and this is just part of it. but I can not have a logical problem with it, but have an emotional problem with it, where people don't realize how difficult it can be for your entire life to be dictated by basically somebody else's rules. So to have that freedom is such a weight lifted. I feel like I can actually live my own life, and I can actually make decisions, and we can make decisions together based on what is like exciting and fun and the right decisions for us, and not the right decision based on a visa. If anybody has any questions about your own indefinite leave to remain process, I can definitely share more in the comments about my application or about the process. It's a lot different than when I started applying 5 years ago, because it's gone from basically paperwork that you had to physically mail in, like a stack of paperwork. Now it's all online. Go figure. In 5 years' time, it changed from sending my passport in the mail, like in this giant box, signed for, tracked, everything, like so stressful, to all being online, and you just like click a button basically, and you're almost done. So a lot has changed and gotten easier with the application process, but I'm so glad to be done. I'm so glad that you made it to the end of this video. I always like doing an Easter egg at the end of videos like this to see if people have been actually watching. I know some of you do watch to the end of every video, which surprises me every time, because funnily enough, though I upload YouTube videos, I don't consider myself really worth listening to. I'm still surprised that people subscribe. So today's Easter egg is comment. Okay, comment your favorite color in the comments, and that will tell me that you have made it all the way to the end, and other people will be like, why are these people all sharing their favorite colors? But we'll know together. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.